Well, thank you for staying with us. We're talking about life insurance, and sometimes it's something that many people don't want to talk about. But what are some of the best ways to save on life insurance? And we got a few tips here. So we've got our financial expert, Jonathan Ortiz, who comes and joins us today. Good to have you.
Thank you, Daren, like always. A pleasure to be here and talk to the community about the opportunities they have.
Right.
First things first, life insurance, it's something that no one wants to talk about.
Right.
The average person, you talk to them about life insurance and they think, I'm going to die, this one's going to die. And no one likes to think about that. No one likes to think about the possibilities that will happen in your life. And I tell people who come to me with those problems, the first thing that I tell them is this: is there someone in your life that you love? Are there things in your life that are important that will need to be taken care of even if you're not here? Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing when you're looking at a life insurance policy, is assessing your current situation, right? Who do you owe money to? Do you have student loans? Do you have this? Do you have that? Some people would argue, why would I care? I'm not here anymore. I would say if you have a mortgage, if you have a house, if you have properties, you need life insurance because those that you will leave will be affected by your loss.
Right. So
how much money do you need? It will depend on your lifestyle. It will depend on who you owe money to and the different assets you have or might not have. The next thing I would like to talk about, and in particular when it comes to life insurance, is do you get whole life or do you get term life? That's probably the number one question when you go online. What type of insurance do I get?
Well, what's the difference between whole life and term life?
Whole life means your entire life. That means you're going to pay a premium, a monthly premium for the rest of your life unless you choose to pay it sooner. You might make payments ahead of time, and instead of taking your whole life to pay them, you might be able to pay it in 10 years instead of your entire life in annuity. Mm-hmm. All right. So if you choose term life, that means that you're only choosing life insurance for a period of time. It's a temporary insurance. So like, let's just say you choose, I'm 30 years old and I only think I'm going to need, to get life insurance for the next 20 years. I'll get life insurance for the next 20 years. Usually, term life insurance is cheaper than whole life. Mm-hmm. You could understand why, because you're only doing it for a portion of your life, not for your entire life. At the end of the term insurance, you usually have the option to increase and either turn it into a whole life or increase the term for another 10 years, 20 years. But as you will, as those in the industry know, a lot of times the value, the amount of money you're going to have to end up paying is probably 2-3 times what you're paying right now for term life.
Yeah. I know you came with some tips today, so I want to talk about some of the tips that we have that you know about life insurance. And so let's look at tip number one. And tip number one, I think you say, look into your employer benefits.
Absolutely. A lot of people say, hey, listen, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough to pay for life insurance. And I tell them, listen, the first thing you should do is look at your employer. What does your employer have to offer? A lot of times your employer offers low or free life insurance options that they give it to you just because you have a job. Same things with some universities, some schools. They make that part of your package and they're included there already.
All right. Number two, you say buy young.
Absolutely. The younger, the healthier you are. I tell people that the younger you are, the lower the premiums are going to be. So you should have it. A lot of times we don't buy them, especially at our young age. All of a sudden something happens and you're not secured, and that could be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Number three, buy enough to cover a few years of expenses.
Absolutely. The same way, you might not be here tomorrow. Your expenses might still be there for your wife, for your spouse, for your significant other, for your mom, for your dad, et cetera, et cetera. So you should, when you're looking at your budget in terms of how much money you should buy in life insurance, you should think about not just now or next month, think about, or just the bureau expenses, but think 2-3 years ahead of time. How will this affect my significant other with that loss?
Number four, you buy insurance for the young ones as well.
Buy insurance for the young ones. Listen, we have kids. We all have kids. They're in school. They're out there. We hear about all these accidents happen, school buses, that happens. You don't want something to happen. Imagine dealing with that loss and then dealing with the fact that you need to come up with the money to pay for their expenses as well.
And having that conversation, that's big. Talking to family.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Family comes first. You need to talk to those who are closest to you about your decision to buy the life insurance. They need to know who's in it, who's not in it, so that when the day comes that this needs to be executed, you will have a game plan in place.
And term and whole, of course, it depends on what the goals are.
Absolutely. So again, if you know if you're younger, I say go with term, and you know if you're older, try to go with whole. It really depends on your situation. It's not a one size fits all. It's really what works for your life.
But when you talk about families, you know, sometimes it's a hard conversation to have, right? And so when you come across the people that you deal with, how often is it a lot of resistance to even talking about the whole issue of life insurance?
Well, you know, death is something difficult to to speak about. I think a lot of people think, well, especially Latino, especially in our black communities, we don't talk about it because we're like, oh, well, we already have a plot of land in our hometown, our homeland. You know, they don't talk about these little things. Oh, it's a monthly plan. A lot of people don't want to chip in, especially for the elderly, because usually our parents are much older than us, and they don't leave us with an inheritance, unfortunately, especially in low-income neighborhoods. They leave us with debt. So what ends up happening is that, you have 2 or 3 brothers. They don't want to help chip in for this, for this life insurance policy. Something happens, that's usually the problem. Can you afford it?
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people the reason why you should go, look into it while they're younger is so that you will be able to afford it.
I want to switch gears for a minute. Just coming out of Black Friday and the whole holiday shopping thing. What are you hearing on your end financially? Was a lot of spending going on?
Oh man, especially Cyber Monday. Cyber Monday was the #1 day in sales in the history of the economy, basically, when it comes to online spending. So it went phenomenal for all of those who were selling things that day.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If for those who are spending, we'll find out a little later on.
Absolutely, we will. I will find out in January.
when it comes to at your desk, right?
Absolutely.
So give us a couple of tips right now before we leave. Once again, talking about life insurance, I guess the best thing is you got to shop around too, right?
I think you should shop around, go around, look at different brokers. Don't just go with the, with the person in your neighborhood. Another thing is look into into different community organizations that might have information and might be able to, push you in a certain direction for you to look at your options at, from a better point of view. Another thing is, for instance, on Saturday there's an economic forum going on in the Bronx, and I would say you should definitely, partake in these discussions and go talk to different community stakeholders, because sometimes those people have the answers you might need.
All right, Jonathan Ortiz, our finance expert. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you,
Good
Daren.
to have you, Jonathan Ortiz. Listen, take a quick break. We've got more show. Stay with us. We'll come right back right after this.